Well, when I think about leadership, I think way back to when I was growing up. My mother was an activist, and she wasn't always an activist, but I think in her heart she always was. So we grew up knowing that she worked at the church, she was a cook, she was involved, with family and friends. But over the years, she got more involved in neighborhood development and neighborhood activism. And that rubbed off on me. I mean, one of the things that my mother always said to me was that, you're here for more than just yourself. You have to give to family, you have to give to community. And that always stood with me because I saw how much she contributed to others. And so over the years, for me, it was natural to be involved in volunteering in the neighborhood. So that's really where my first kind of activism and leadership came out, was in the neighborhood. And I was, even at 14, I was tutoring younger kids at, it was called Guadalupe Area Project at the time. And as I got older, I continued to volunteer on things that would, support kids or a local community effort. And then I went away to college, got married when I was away, had my first child, came back when my child was 7 months old, my oldest. And soon after that, both my husband and I just started working. I mean, we had to work. And I had 4 children by the time I was 23. So that's a lot. And so obviously my first kind of adult years as a parent were working. And but at the same time, I knew that there was more I needed to be involved in. So over the years, I started to get more and more involved in the neighborhood. And I grew up on the west side of St. Paul. And so for me, that's home. That's my community. That's my home community. And it's always been that way from the time I was a child. And it continues to be that way. I still live in the neighborhood. My parents bought the house that I live in 1955. And I was 1 year old. And I now live on the side that my aunt and uncle and my grandmother lived in. And my daughter lives on the side that my parents lived in. So it's been, for me, important to live up to what my mother said. You're here for more than just yourself. And it goes beyond family. It really goes to community. And so everything I do, I keep that in mind. I think the earlier years of my being an adult and having 4 children, as I said, we're focused on work, but I got more and more involved in community efforts, both in the neighborhood, but then also in the Latino community and working with Latina girls. And so my first kind of work in nonprofits was in the kind of early 80s, and that was with a Latino organization, Hispanic Women's Development Corporation. And we focused on community economic development, career development, and motivation for youth, for teen girls to go into college. And I think that's where it really was shaped as far as my mind about what the potential was for our community, as well as what my potential was as a leader. And so I go way back to the early 80s in formal work that was all about community development and community leadership. I've worked with youth and I've worked with adults, adult women, and mixed groups of women and men. I've worked in Latino communities as well as mixed communities. And the work with youth is very special because I see young people, and having 4 children, and to see them grow up through their teen years and really shape kind of who they are as far as what they were going to be interested in and how they supported their friends and how they took on leadership, whether it was at school or with their friends, et cetera. To me, it's about giving young people opportunities to be their best. I really believe, and we believe as an organization at Casa de Esperanza, that everybody has assets and skills and abilities and talents and gifts to give. And I think when you work with kids from that perspective, with that kind of a framework, then it allows them to really explore who they are and to give back to others once they are able to really explore what it is that they have to offer. And many times kids don't know that. You know, young people are always told that, you know, they're not doing enough, or they don't know anything, or they're not listened to. And the young people that we work with and that my staff have worked with over the years really believe in themselves and their confidence, and they believe that they have something to give to their peers. And the only way I think a young person can get to that place is if they've been supported by someone else, whether it's one person in their life or it's a group of people in their lives. And I know what it was for my kids to have mentors and be supported, and to see that they used that support to continue to grow over the years. And I also know what it was like to see, you know, when my children weren't supported, whether it was by a teacher or someone else in the community, and how devastating that is for children and for youth. So for me, it's important that we always look to the best of who they are, because it's there. You know, sometimes it's just giving them opportunities to use their talents and to develop new skills, and to recognize that they can be leaders too. You know, you don't have to be in a position or a formal title to be a leader. And we say that a lot to both the youth as well as to adults and to women in our community. And I think for women who come to us for support and for advocacy services, many times they don't recognize the leadership within that they have, or the skills that they have, because they've maybe not been given that reinforcement or that confirmation or affirmation. And so for us, we always work with individuals from recognizing that they have strengths and they know their lives better than we know their lives. So it's never about telling people what to do. It's about supporting them in their decisions. And I think the more you do that and the more people get that opportunity, the more that they can see that they have something to offer others as well. Not just themselves, not just their children, but others. And it goes back to what my mother always said, you know, you can be here certainly to do the best you can for yourself and to do the best you can for your family, but you're also here to do the best you can for your community. And I see youth every day doing that, you know, for their community, for their peers, and for other families, because I think we've sparked that in them. And to me, if you truly want to support youth leadership, you have to be able to do that. You have to see that sometimes they're much smarter than you are, and that you can learn a lot from youth, even more so than sometimes they can learn from you. One of the things that I talk to folks about when I train on leadership development, you know, people will say, well, what makes a good leader? And we always start with a definition of leadership. There's all kinds of definitions of leadership, you know, and so I might start with a written definition from the dictionary. But to me, it's not just about looking at leadership. To me, it's about community leadership. And I draw a difference when you're talking about community leadership, because I say, you know, community leadership is about using everything that you have, your skills, your abilities, your knowledge, to work with others in building and supporting healthy community. And so when I put that tag on it, that it's not just about using my skills, you know, to lead people or to influence people, it's really about using what I have and what others have to support others in the community, to build the community that we want, or to support the community that we want. Then people can start seeing, well, how do they do that? And why is that important? And when I've trained on leadership development, to me, one of the fascinating things is that, again, people come into a training or they work with you and they don't see that they're a leader. And they think that leadership, again, is about position or power or title. And so over time, it's about working with, how do you support others? How does your neighbor support others in the community? Who do you go to because you know they have a lot to offer? They're wise, or they've always supported people in the neighborhood. And many times that's not the positional leadership, or it's not the political leadership. It's really somebody that lives in the community or lives in the neighborhood or that is down the street that they consider a leader, but yet they haven't realized that they also have that within them. One thing that has stayed with me for many, many years. I was working in rural communities for a while, in particular with immigrant leaders and leaders of color, and also teaming them and working with what I call mainstream leaders, positional leaders, whether that was the mayor or the city council president or the United Way president. And we were doing these partnerships. And for me, it was all about the partnerships were made up of leaders. It wasn't that the positional leader was the leader and the others were the learner. It was that they're both leaders. And once you work from a partnership perspective and really kind of supporting community and creating the kind of community you want, it really lets down kind of people's guard about, well, gee, this is the way I should behave, or this is what's needed. I mean, you really become kind of 2 people or 4 people or 8 people working together. And one of the individuals who was an elder in the community, a Latino male, said to me when we had the big celebration when they graduated, from the program, from the training program, said to me, many people teach us how to build a bridge, because this is all about building bridges in community. Many people teach us how to do that, because I've gone through many leadership trainings. They all teach you how you have to build a bridge. But you've helped us to cross over the bridge. And that had always stayed with me, because it is about that. It's about how do you support people in applying what they've learned, so that as we provide people with leadership opportunities or leadership training or leadership coaching, it's about believing that they can apply those skills and they can cross over whatever that bridge is, so that they can then take on the leadership that they need to take on and that they can support others. It's also not about always being visible or in the front. And we talk a lot about that when we provide leadership training. And I like to use the concept of the geese and how they fly in a V formation. And the reason that they fly in the V formation, first of all, there's strength in flying together in that way versus one goose kind of flying solo in the wind. And so as they do that, they're also supporting each other. So the front goose is obviously the lead goose. But when the lead goose gets tired, goes to the back of the formation and another goose takes the front. And when one goose is hurt or is tired, they might fly off to the side, and usually 1 or 2 other geese will go down and stay with that goose until the goose is ready to move forward. And then they might join the original formation that they were a part of, or they'll join another formation. They also honk a lot, so when you hear geese honking, that's a way of supporting everybody in the formation, or every goose in the formation. And so I like to use that kind of analogy, because it is about, you can't always be at the front, but you can always support someone who might have to take the leadership at the front. And you might need to be in front and then take a back step in order to support others to step forward. So that's a concept that I think people can understand, youth and adults, that I think really does display how I see community leadership. When I think about the work I did in neighborhoods, for example, I still live in the neighborhood that I did a lot of community development work in. And so one of the things I think a lot about is there are many rewards in leadership. You see a lot of things that can transpire because you've been with people that you really care about. You care about the community you live in. You want to see things happen. And so all of those are rewards. When I was able to coach staff that worked in the neighborhood organization, for example, and I was a volunteer in the organization and could coach them, and to this day many of them say, oh, you were really tough, but I've learned so much, and you really wanted the best out of me. And so that's important to me. And those are rewards. When you see someone that's moved on and is doing great things, and you know that you knew them when, that's a great reward. When you see housing development on the street, that there was just an old abandoned building there for many, many years. When you see the library that's been renovated, when we were told it would be shut down, all of those kinds of things give you a wonderful feeling. But at the same time, I always talk about there's also risks in leadership. And when I think about neighborhood leadership, I think I think about the fact that it's not only where you might work or where you might volunteer, but you live there. And day in and day out, everybody knows you. And so as you step forward and as you take on, whether it's different projects or different efforts or really trying to make change in community, sometimes it looks good to others and sometimes it doesn't. So there are tough times when you're a leader as well. And I try to talk to people about that. You know, there are many, many rewards. What will you do when it gets tough? How do you support yourself? How do you help others to support you in ways that are going to get you through the tough times? Because it's not always a piece of cake, you know. And I've had those experiences where I felt, oh God, why can't they see I'm doing this for the community. I'm not doing this for personal gain. I'm not doing this because I want to make more money in the future. I'm not doing this so that I have advantage to these, you know, new opportunities. Those aren't things that are in the front of my mind. What's in the front of my mind is how will this change the lives of a group of people who are living in rundown, awful apartments and deserve to have better housing. But not everybody can see that you're as transparent as you think you are. So that takes extra effort. And I remember going to my mother one time and saying, "Why is it so hard? You know, I'm trying to do the best I can, and it's not always understood." She said, "Look around you. There are many people that support you, and there are many people that you stand with. But there's always going to be times where somebody's going to doubt what you're doing, and you're going to have to live with that. And you can do your best to try to convince people that you're really out for the best of the community. But you're not always going to convince everybody, so you can quit, or you can keep moving forward. And you can try to bridge a relationship and bridge the trust. But there may be times that no matter what you do, it's not going to make a difference. So again, are you here for the community, or are you here to make your life easy?" And so, I had to think about that. But I do try to have people really reflect on what might be the risks and what might be, the opportunities. Because the other thing is that people's lives change when you take on more visible leadership in community. People may expect more of you, or people may call on you more. You may want to be more engaged. So families don't always understand, that commitment that you may have. And I think that's also something that I've looked at over the years. When I think about what it takes to kind of stay out there or be your best for the long term, I think over the years, at the times that I probably didn't do my best to take care of myself, to balance, personal, work, community. And for me, community and work kind of cross over because I do the work that I do. And for me, community building, community development, community leadership, community capacity, building relationships in community that really sustain change are important to me. It's just part of who I am. And so when I think about the work here at Casa de Esperanza, as a director, it's important that our staff and our participants really get the best of everybody here. Really believe that we're here for the long term. We're here to support community. We believe in community. But at the same time, it also means that not one of us can be everything. No one of us can be everything. And so it's about building the leadership in our staff. It's about trusting that other staff and other community members can also step forward, that it's not always about one or two individuals. And I've had to think a lot about that over the years, because to me, if we're not bringing forward more and more leadership, whether it's from our own staff or whether it's from community members who we believe have the leadership to move things forward and make a change, then we haven't done our best job, and certainly I haven't done my best job. But I think over the years there have been times where burnout has happened, and it might happen for a short period of time where I can't go to another meeting, for example, or I can't, get up in the morning at 5 o'clock like I usually do. But there have also been times where the work and the community kind of connections and relationships have been so deep and so strong and taken over a big part of my life that after several years, I've had to say, okay, I need to stop. I need to take a break. And I've done that a few times over the years. And sometimes in the immediacy, it may feel like a failure. Geez, I should just stay in there. But in the long term, it's really what's best. And in part for me, but also for others. It allows others to kind of step forward. But I think the way to do it is to prepare for that versus getting so drawn out, so tired and just feeling like I can't go forward another day, where then you just kind of take an abrupt step away. And I've done that twice in the past. Most times I plan for it, but that means I'm in more balance. That means I'm taking care of myself better, and I'm thinking about others and bringing others along in a much stronger way so that it doesn't feel like it's so abrupt, where I get off every board that I'm on, or I step away and out of leadership, and then it takes me a while to kind of get back in there. But even when I've done that, it's always about supporting others and believing that others can take something forward, whether I'm there or not. And I think that's what has helped me over the years to continue. Because I do think many times people just overextend themselves. And you can't do that for a long, sustained period without having burnout. And it's important to us here at the agency, at our organization, that we not create burnout, because then no one gains in the end. Well, I'd like to believe that we are very supportive of our staff. We're very supportive of their leadership. Some of our staff are on the ground working day in and day out with really tough situations and challenging situations for families. And so that wears on you after a while. And so I think we're constantly trying to find ways that we can build more self-care, kind of awareness, provide more skill development, more support, more opportunities to cross-train and cross-connect across the organization for our staff so that people can learn and share from each other. I also think we do that by encouraging our staff to be involved in other things and involved with other committees or organizational projects, and to provide opportunities for our staff to take leadership. I think the more that we do that, the more staff are self-aware of what's possible and what they need. The other way that we do it is we try to get together monthly for sure with all staff, but we also try to encourage cross-program work so that I might be working directly with a couple of our advocacy staff and a couple of directors, and together we're doing a project or we're doing some development together. And I think for staff that are kind of on the ground to have those opportunities to learn and to share and to impart what they know to others that are in more higher positional areas of work, it really, I think, equalizes kind of the opportunity for everybody. It goes back to when I talked about the leadership opportunity when you're partnering people together, and that no one is the leader over the other. I'd like to think that we do that with our staff, that no one is the leader over the other. We might have different positions, but I can learn as much from an advocate that's working with families day in and day out that I think they might be able to learn from me around leadership or running a nonprofit, or how to problem solve. And so I think as long as we see that that's our role with each other, then it allows us to work in the community in better ways. As far as leadership development, and why we do that work. We believe that community deserves resources, information, knowledge, skill building in order for them to do the work that's going to take to change and to end domestic violence, for example. We will never end domestic violence as an organization. No organization will, no system will, but community can. And the only way that community can do that is by community members being able to have the information, the knowledge, and the opportunity to really work with others in the community around the issues, around how to problem solve it, how to create new opportunities, how to inform other people about it, how to support other people about it. And that, to me, is some of the work we have to do in community in order to make that happen. One of the things I love about working here at Casa de Esperanza is that it's provided the opportunity to work with women, primarily Latina women, majority of them monolingual immigrant, Spanish-speaking women. And we also work with a similar population in the community. So it's not just women who might come to us because they're seeking emergency shelter or seeking support and understanding around their family situation as far as domestic violence. But it's also about working in the community with families, with women, with men who really want to be engaged. And so for many individuals, they've not had the opportunity to go through formal leadership development training. And so it's a great process to be able to walk people through what leadership is about, what community leadership is, for them to reflect on who they admire as far as leadership and why they might admire someone who's been a leader to them or a mentor to them. And it's taking them through a process over several weeks that really allows them to go deeper and to reflect on what it is that they have to offer. And we also have people prepare presentations. And many people, many women, for example, have never kind of had that opportunity to develop their presentation skills. And there's fear in standing up and presenting. And we go through that because when we started the leadership program, it really was about providing opportunities for Latinas to provide workshops, talleres in Spanish, to other Latinas in the community. Well, in order to provide a workshop, you have to have some presentation skills and facilitation skills. And so we really do focus on building that capacity. And it's amazing that as the group gets more and more kind of gets more comfortable with the idea of standing up and presenting in front of someone, the more that you see kind of their strength build and their confidence build. And the other thing that we talk about is, what does it take to be a leader in the community? So we don't expect the women that we work with to go out and say, I'm a leader, this is what I'm going to be doing. They might have to say that once in a while, I'm a community leader too. But it's more about how they use what they have to work in supportive community. And so what we talk about is there's a few things that we expect community leaders to do. And one is to be informed. So they realize that, there are lots of ways to become informed. Some of that is through formal kind of training, skill building, et cetera. But some of it is about just being out there and knowing what the resources are. Another thing that we really expect community leaders to do is to provide leadership opportunities for others. So that, again, it's not always being in front, but it's about working with others so that you're encouraging others to maybe take some leadership. And in doing that, you're also being a good leader. And so I think it really opens people's eyes as to what it means to be a leader. The other thing that we say is that, you need to be able to inspire possibilities in others. So how do you do that? Well, you do that by encouraging people to take a step forward. You do that by role modeling the best of who you are. You do that by looking for opportunities, being aware of opportunities so that you can share those with others. But you inspire people by being, enthusiastic, excited about what you're involved in so that others can get involved as well. And I think in doing that, you start to bring out the best in others. And as you bring out the best in others, there's a stronger cohort of people that are really working toward the same kind of the same goals in the community. I think the other thing that for women that we've worked with who have never seen themselves as leaders before, they recognize that they have the power to make change. You know, they have the power to make a difference. They have the power to create connections and to really make a difference in the lives of other women and families in the community. And once they see that what they're doing really provides that opportunity in community, I think the confidence and the willingness to actually step forward even further just starts to happen. I mean, there have been women who have been trained through our leadership development program and who have done workshops in the community that have gone on and are doing other things in the community and taking on other roles and leading committees or action projects or volunteering in new ways that they would have never thought about doing before because they recognize that they have something to offer. And I think that's when you start to realize, boy, you know, there's something powerful here, and we're on the right track, because the more that our community members can be the resources to other community members, the stronger our community will be. Because again, as an organization, we can never reach everybody in the community. And one of our, I guess, mottos is that, you know, it's about putting the work in the hands of community, because that's where the change will happen. And if a community member can be the resource that one of their neighbors needs, so that that neighbor doesn't have to find Casa de Esperanza, you know, blindly or in a phone book or through 911, but that that neighbor knows how to support the person, then we've all gained. And that's what we want to be able to create, is that there are many, many community members that are the resources to others in the community. They're using their leadership, that are using their skills, that are using their knowledge and information to make community life better for others. And if we can continue to support that kind of effort, then, well, you know, I think we're on our way to making change as far as addressing issues of violence in the homes. Well, we started doing national training in late 2004. And what we do is we provide training and other types of technical assistance, you know, coaching, support, resources as far as tools or products, books, videos, et cetera, to people across the country. And we work with both mainstream communities, so mainstream organizations that are working with Latinas experiencing domestic violence or Latino communities, and we work with Latino organizations who are wanting to build their capacity in order to build stronger partnerships, in order to better address issues of domestic violence or sexual violence. And we also then work on policy issues. We have a policy initiative and we have a research center. So that national work is informed by our local work that's here on the ground. And so all of the national training that we do, whether it's, well, not all of it, because we do training that's specific for a region or a community group or a set of organizations. But we also have training that is open. So there's webinars, monthly webinars, and they might be on topics around how to work with teen moms, how to address issues of immigration, lots of topics that we provide on a monthly basis. And those are open to not only our national, you know, groups or organizations that we work with regularly, but also open to others across the country that might be interested in learning more about these various topics. We also do locally, one of the things that we've wanted to do is to expand our leadership development work and the opportunity for community members to take on action projects. And an action project is a project that will benefit the community and really address how the community member or the leader can can take the issue of domestic violence and incorporate what their role is in helping to end domestic violence, for example. So a community member may want to work with youth, and let's say there's an organization in their neighborhood that works with youth, and they want to be a coach or a supporter of the youth on how to build healthy relationships. So we would provide them the leadership development training and some coaching around what does that action project look like? What is it that they're going to want to do with that youth project? And how will they inform youth about issues of what it takes to have healthy relationships, what unhealthy relationships look like. There are groups of Latina women who want to be a support network for other Latina women. So that might be an action project for 2 to 4 women coming together saying, you know, we want to do some support groups or kind of action planning in our neighborhood or in our apartment complex, because there's things we think we can change. But we also want to know what the resources are. And we know some of the women in our community or in our apartment building are dealing with domestic violence. So we need to know more information about it. So we'll provide the leadership training. We'll provide training around domestic violence and sexual violence so that, again, they can be better resources, and they can do that in non-judgmental ways so that then community members gain by their knowledge, information, networking, and resources. And their community project then is about whatever it is that group of women want to continue to do. They might do something for their apartment complex. They might do something for the children at the school. But in everything that they're doing, they're also thinking about how do they support other women and families with resources, information, et cetera. So I think for me, it's about the more we can do that, the more networks of community members that are actively engaged in helping to address the issues of violence in the families. The more men that get involved, and maybe their action project is about working with boys and coaching boys on how to be better partners, you know, better supporters of family and of girls and of women. Then the more that they do that, the more that our youth can grow up seeing healthy role models and understanding what it takes to have a healthy relationship. So I think that's our job. Our job is about working with as many community members as possible who really see that they have a role to play in helping our community to continue to prosper and to continue to address issues of violence in our families, in our homes. And I think there are many community members who want to do that, whether it's men, whether it's youth, whether it's women, whether it's families, whether it's in a faith community or whether it's in a neighborhood or whether it's at, you know, an apartment complex. And so for us, it's about being creative and being a resource in ways that can make a difference. And I think what we're doing may not be done by a lot of different organizations, but I think it's worth the effort, and it's worth the rewards that I think will happen because of it. I think one of the things that's most important to me is living out the belief, because you can't just say it, you have to believe it. You know, that everybody has something to offer, that every child, every adult, every community member has something to offer. Now, not everybody may recognize that, or not everybody may always live up to that reality, but the more that we can, and that I can be the type of person and organization that recognizes that and that believes in the strength of community and believes in the strength of individuals, the better our community will be. And so I believe that at a core. To me, it's about bringing out the best in others, and it's about working on behalf of others. You know, that's why I'm here. I still take to heart my mother, who passed away over a year ago, I still take to heart what she always said, is that you're here for more than just yourself. And it's not always going to be easy. There are going to be times that you're going to feel really challenged, or you're going to feel like you're standing alone. And those times are few and far between, really. And I think as I've gotten older, I recognize that, yeah, there were times it was tough. But there is nothing better than knowing that you have contributed toward community betterment, and that you've contributed to others taking leadership. And I see that day in and day out. And that's, to me, that's where the rewards are. It's knowing that it doesn't take me to do something or to take the leadership. And even when someone calls on me, it's up to me to think of 2 or 3 or 4 other people that really can do the same thing that I can do. And maybe even do it better, but maybe they're not as known as I am. And the more I can do that, then again, the better our community will be, because we need all of our community members and all of our community leaders to see that they have a role to play. And it's not just about the few of us in between. The other thing that kind of excites me right now as far as the Latino community is, you know, the 3 largest Latino organizations here are led by Latinas. And for Casa de Esperanza, what's important is that we have a co-leadership structure. And so my co-director is not Latina, but is, I think, one of the strongest allies that any Latina or any Latino organization could ever have. And so it's not a structure that's based on, oh, one needs to be Latina and one doesn't need to be Latina. It's just, that just happens to be who we are. But we've always had Latina leadership involvement and at the head of the organization. And so we continue to have that as well. But the other 2 organizations, Clues and Centro Inc., also have Latina leaders in their director role. So that's kind of an exciting time. That's not, I think, happened for maybe forever. There have been Latina director in organizations before, but to have 3 of the primary directors be Latinas is an opportunity for us to also kind of forge together and see what difference can we make as Latinas in leadership, with the support of our allies and others in our organizations, to really work on behalf of community. And it's not that every director doesn't do their best, but it's also an opportunity for Latinas to come together and see what difference can we make as women leaders as well, that might be different than what we've done in the past. And working with our colleagues across into the region as well. You know, when I was asked earlier, you know, how do you sustain yourself? How do you keep moving forward? And I've said, and I've been very open about this, you know, I haven't always done the great balance between work, personal life, family, community, etc. I haven't always done my best. I've tried to do my best, but usually it's going to be the personal that takes the back seat, and personal health, personal well-being, spending time with my friends and my family. And so, you know, I've had to really work at that over the years. And thankfully, I've had children that have been very understanding. But I know that there were times when they were younger that they wondered, where's mom today, you know? And but I think they are who they are in part because I am who I was and I am. And so I'd like to think that they've gained from me some of the same things that I gained from my mother. And so that's important to me. But the other thing that I've thought of over the years is I read a book many years ago called The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz, who is a Toltec, you know, wise elder. And I've thought about those 4 agreements over the years. And I used to have them posted up in my office. I no longer have it posted, but I kind of keep them with me because I think they've helped me to really reflect on things when things seem a little tough. So the 4 agreements are: be impeccable with your words, always do your best, don't take it personally, and don't make assumptions. So I've always said, well, the first 2 are really easy for me. I like to believe that I'm impeccable with my word. Integrity and authenticity is important to me. And I believe in order to be an effective leader, those better be core qualities. And always do your best. I think, okay, there are times that maybe I haven't done the best at balancing, but it's not because I didn't try to do my best. And so always do your best is about trying to always do your best. You know, you're never going to be perfect every day. And so he talks about that. It's not about, you know, you can't always outdo the day before. But even if you're sick, as long as you do the best that you can that day, then you've done your best. And so I've kind of lived with that and thinking, I can really, those 2 I embrace and they're part of who I am. The last 2, you know, it's don't take it personally. It's like, oh my God, everything's personal. How can you not take it personal? And don't make assumptions. You know, you have to work at those, because when it's don't take it personally isn't about that you can't feel things or that you're not personally, you know, invested in something. But it's about when something doesn't go your way or when someone hurts you in a way that, you know, it's going to kind of take a toll on you. It's also about being able to say, you know what, that's not about me. It's not always about me. It might be about the other person, might be about the situation. It might be about something that I have no control over. So I can't take it so personally that it's going to stop me from being able to do what I can do to keep moving forward. And so I tend to now kind of think about it that way. And the don't make assumptions, again, it's so easy every day to make an assumption about something. So I have to always think about that. When I see someone maybe saying or doing something that just kind of surprises me, I have to remember, don't make assumptions. You don't know what's going on maybe in that person's life that day at that moment. And it could be something that's totally unrelated to what you're involved in that created that situation. So the more that I work on those 2, I think the stronger I am personally. And for other people, those 2 are the easiest. Don't make assumptions, don't take it personally. And maybe be impeccable with your word and always do your best are the 2 that they struggle with. So I tend to look at them as a cohort of 4 agreements. And I know there's a 5th agreement, and I've not read the 5th agreement book yet, or what the 5th agreement is, because I've always just kind of embraced the 4. So I have to at some point kind of learn what the 5th one and see kind of how do I incorporate that into my life. But I have found that those have been helpful for me. And I think they are also about balance, you know, to be able to kind of, you can't do everything all the time in the same way. But you can do your best, and you can do it with authenticity, which to me is how I try to live my life.